thought I'd talk about the great American political party switch. The switch that turned the Democrats into Republicans. The switch that moved all the racists over to one side and all the good people over to the other side. The switch that never happened. But of course, they all apologized and said they were sorry and all that, and the news media forgave them. Love our formerly racist Democrats who never switched sides, even though we keep saying they did.
Defend the Republican Party or defend us becoming conservatives, the first thing they'll say is, no, because in the 60s, we all switched. Everybody switched. They switched and we switched. FDR ran on a platform of big government. I'm trying to show you that the Democrats and the Republicans have always been big government versus small government. Democrats meaning big government, Republicans meaning small government or limited government. Y'all got to understand this switch never happened. We've been bamboozled, we've been had, we've been hoodwinked, we've been took. All the signs of slavery from the plantation you can see in the black neighborhood today.
Are you saying that today's Democratic Party continues to use blacks for their political advantage?
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Just like any good con artist, they know, never give up the con. Deny, deny, deny. Instead of accepting blame, they shift the blame onto the very people who fought against their injustice. Today's Democrats don't like to hear about their own history.
The Klan is a terrorist organization that has killed...
A leftist terrorist
organization. You can put whatever label you want. That's your game to play.
No, that's your game to play. No, they're not. We're not going to play that game.
If you are racist, you're probably a Republican.
Like a lot of Democrats, he's relying on the big switch. That's the idea that the Democrats got racially enlightened and became the good guys, whereas the racists in the Democratic Party all became Republicans. Blacks switched to the Democratic Party in the 1930s based on the promises of the New Deal. They didn't do it because of race. Many reluctantly moved to the Democratic Party, knowing they were joining the party of segregation and the Ku Klux Klan. Let's make a list and we'll see who switched. We'll start with the leaders of the Ku Klux Klan. Now let's add in the leaders of various racist organizations, and Democratic congressmen, and Democratic senators from 1860 all the way to 2000. Let's throw in all the people who voted against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So there they are, all 1,600 of them. Ready for the big switch? We'll go from Democratic blue to Republican red. So here it is. Yes, that's it. Less than 1%. The big switch is a big lie. The Democrats didn't switch from being the bad guys to the good guys. They simply found a new and bigger scam.
One goes today to the Democratic-controlled inner city. And we're talking here about some 24 cities entirely dominated by the Democratic Party. There's not a Republican in sight. I argue that we will see in them now all the 5 features of the slave plantation. Number 1, broken down, dilapidated, and unsafe housing. Number 2, broken families. Number 3, a high degree of violence required to hold the place together. Police power, whippings, overseers, fences, barbed wire. Number 4, everybody gets a basic provision. You need food, you have health care, they call the doctor, but nobody gets ahead. There's no opportunity, nobody really advances. And finally, nihilism and despair. A feeling that there's no future, that this is an intergenerational, ongoing, lasting way of life.
President Lyndon Johnson was purported to have said about the Civil Rights Act, I'll have them voting Democrat for 200 years. So now, the Democratic Party prospers on the votes of the very people it has spent much of its history oppressing. Massive government welfare has decimated the black family. Opposition to school choice has kept them trapped in failing schools. Politically correct policing has left black neighborhoods defenseless against violent crime. The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 1960s. 7 case, Dred Scott versus Sandford. The court ruled that slaves aren't citizens, they're property. The 7 justices who voted in favor of slavery, all Democrats. The 2 justices who dissented, both Republicans. The 6 days after the Confederate Army surrendered, John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat, assassinated President Lincoln. During the era of Reconstruction, federal troops stationed in the South helped secure rights for the newly freed slaves. Democrats did not elect a black man to Congress until 1935. Much of it instigated by the Ku Klux Klan, founded by a Democrat, Nathan Bedford Forrest. As historian Eric Foner, himself a Democrat, notes, in effect, the Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party. President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, shared many views with the Klan. He resegregated many federal agencies and even screened the first movie ever played at the White House, the racist film, The Birth of a Nation, originally entitled The Klansman.
The Klan terrorized black Americans through murders and public floggings. Relief was granted only if they promised not to vote for Republican tickets, and violation of this oath was punishable by death. Representative Joseph Hayne Rainey from South Carolina delivered a powerful speech during the debates on that bill, explaining why blacks were most often the targets of Klan violence.
When we call to mind the fact that this Klan persecution is waged against men for the simple reason that they dare vote with the Republican Party, the question is sometimes asked, why do not the courts of law afford redress? We answer, because the courts are in many instances under the control of Democrats who are wholly opposed to the impartial administration of law and equity. What benefit would result from appeal to courts whose officers are secretly in sympathy with the very evil against which we are striving? If the Negroes, numbering 1/8 of the population of these United States, would only cast their votes in the interest of the Democrats, all open measures of violence against them would immediately be suspended and their rights as American citizens recognized. But I can only say that we love freedom more, vastly more than slavery. Consequently, we hope to keep clear of the Democrats. I will also say that in the state of South Carolina, which I represent, there's no disturbance of an alarming character in any one of the counties in which the Republicans have a majority. The troubles are usually in those sections in which the Democrats have control. I say to the entire membership of the Democratic Party that upon your hands rests the blood of the loyal men of the South. Disclaim it as you will, but the stain is there to prove your criminality before man and God, in the world in the day of retribution, which will surely come. I pity the man or party of men who would seek to ride into power over the dead body of a legitimate opponent. I can say for my people that we are fully determined to stand by the Republican Party and the government.
A few years ago, ideas that we talked about were thought to be fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas. Those ideas are now mainstream.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country.
And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
What's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women?
One way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy, so please bring on the recession.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Why did God make so many dumb fools and Democrats?
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking.
Our founding by abolitionists in 1854, the Republican Party has led the fight for freedom and equality in America. Formed in 1854, meetings of this new party were held throughout the North, leading to our first national convention in Philadelphia on June 17, 1856. Since our founding, Republicans not only fought for freedom, we worked to pass the 13th Amendment outlawing slavery, the 14th Amendment guaranteeing equal protection under the law, and the 15th Amendment that secured the right of African Americans to vote. In 1896, when the Women's Suffrage Amendment went to the states for ratification, all 26 of the Republican-led state legislatures supported a woman's right to vote. The African American elected to Congress wasn't a Democrat. It was Hiram Revels of Mississippi, a Republican that took his seat in the United States Senate on February 25, 1870. Ignore the attacks and find out the facts.